Welcome to the Maxwell Leadership Executive Podcast, where our goal is to help you increase your reputation as a leader, increase your ability to influence others, and increase your ability to fully engage your team to deliver remarkable results. Hi, I'm Perry Holley, a Maxwell Leadership facilitator and coach.
And I'm Chris Goede, Executive Vice President with Maxwell Leadership. Welcome and thank you for joining. I don't know about you, but often I think about, what does my leadership pipeline look like? Who am I developing? Who is on the team? Who is, oftentimes we go into meetings and
we wondered the same thing about you.
Yeah, I bet you have. Oftentimes the question will be, if you were not here, who's sitting in your seat? Right. And I'm like, well, why are you asking, right? Like, is there something that I don't know? Well, we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about filling your leadership pipeline. This is an essential focus that needs to be happening on leaders and teams around the world. And Perry has put together some content, no doubt, from what we are hearing in the field of men and women that are just saying, man, I need to be doing a better job of filling my leadership pipeline. What does that look like? So as we get started, just a reminder, if you're looking for someone to do some leadership coaching, maybe there's some content that you need in regards to developing your emerging leaders so that you do have a pipeline and we can help you with that. I want to encourage you to visit maxwellleadership.com/podcast. There, if you click on this podcast, you'll be able to fill out a form and then we'll get back in touch with you as soon as possible. Well, this is something that, as I just mentioned, we are hearing in the field. You are hearing about it probably daily on your coaching calls or when you're in front of a client. I was with a client yesterday and they talked about, what does their pipeline look like? How are we going to get some younger leaders up in here that will be able to take our jobs as we move through? And so this is something that as leaders, we need to be thinking about. We need to be developing leaders and going through that process. That is part of what our role is. So with conscious unbossing, which we did a podcast on that several months ago, the great detachment, the quiet quitting, we are finding it very difficult to find the needles in the haystack that are saying, hey, I want to be a part of this. I want to be developed. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to give you some thoughts and keys around that. So Perry, appreciate you bringing this to us.
Yeah, no, it is coming up on coaching calls when I ask what is your succession plan or how are you generating your next generation of leaders. They don't really have good answers for that. And John says that leadership is more developed than discovered and that you're going to have to take some intentionality in that. And I have my own personal experience, maybe yours as well, is that sometimes natural leadership kind of bubbles to the top. You might have some people that exhibit some tendencies for leadership that you notice, but my further experience was even that has to be developed and purposefully put to use to get them ready for when that time arrives. Most of the leaders I'm talking to are not, well, two things. Either they say, yes, I should be doing that, I just don't have the time, or that's not my job. It's somebody else in the it's our L&D department, learning and development's doing that or whatever. No, that's a leader's responsibility is, we call it level 4 of the fight. You need to be growing more leaders.
Yeah. As a leader, we talk about the fact that you need to not only be growing your influence, that's where it starts. Perry just mentioned the 5 levels of leadership, right? It starts at level 1. We talk a lot about self-awareness and then what does your influence look like? Also, as leaders, we need to lead change. We need to lead productivity. We need to make sure that we're hitting our KPIs. And then right next to it, not far off, is we need to be growing more leaders inside our organization. When we talk about the 5 levels, and Perry mentioned level 4, when you get to level 5, one of the things we like to talk about at this level is that you're sitting back, you're adding value to those that you have led for so long, because then they're developing leaders. And you've just become this expert at developing and growing more leaders. And that's ultimately what we need to be doing. Some of us might be on a larger scale. Some of us it might be just one-on-one and who the next person is. And so we need to find and develop leaders. And so we're going to talk about that.
Well, the starting point is really, for me, how do you see people? And how do you, when you look at the people on your team, what do you see? And if you don't have a belief system that people have potential, people have the ability to grow and learn, you're going to have a hard time actually developing other people. So I think good leaders believe that everyone, no matter who he or she is, have value of some kind. And so I'm looking for ways to, in my one-on-ones with you, in my time getting to know you and watching you and your work, I'm looking for signs that say, yes,
Yeah.
what is your strength? Where are your potentials? And then, you mentioned the term conscious unbossing, where some of the youngers are saying, I don't want to be in leadership. There will always be those that say they don't want to be in
That's
leadership,
right.
but
That's
maybe they
right.
don't even know what that means. And so I have a real open mind about, I want to see the potential in others and then take it as my job, my goal to develop your potential. Does it end up in a leadership position? Maybe. Does it not? You still need to be leading with your influence.
That's right.
So it's not a title. It's I want you developing. So this idea of developing others, no matter if they go into management, leadership or not, it starts with how I see you.
Yeah. And it goes back to what we define as leadership, which is influence. And ultimately, if I'm going to grow my influence with you, Perry, whether you get a roll down the road or not, the fact that I'm working to connect with you to produce and win and then to add value to you, that's part of the process of development.
Right.
I love what you said as we kicked it off. You said that leadership is developed more than it is discovered, right? And that's key, because if you could look at somebody, I could think about somebody on my team right now, like I see the individual, but what I really want to do is think about developing the individual and see the potential, not the current position that they're sitting in. As they're sitting in a certain position, I couldn't necessarily just discover them as a particular leader. They're going to need a lot of development to be able to do that. So see the potential, not the current position that they're sitting in. So I'm going to give you some phrases. Perry gave me some here that I was smiling as I was reading them, because I've been around John a long time. John Maxwell has several different sayings around this. John has the ultimate belief in people, so much so we said he can no longer hire around here. And Mark Cole is not far behind him, because he just, man, when you talk about, what is it that you see in people? He has a saying where he puts a 10 on people's heads at all times. And I'm grateful for it, because when I was 23, I did not have a 10 in my leadership development and where I was, but he put a 10 on my head.
He saw you that
and
way.
He saw me that way,
The
which
potential
is,
of being
that's
a
right.
10,
That's right. So I love that saw me that way. He says, look for gold, not dirt. Okay. We're going to leave that there.
Well, no, really. You go into a mine.
100%.
Yeah,
go ahead. Keep going.
You can see all the dirt.
Oh.
No, I'm looking for the gold here.
Looking for gold.
Everybody's got dirt.
That's right.
But let's look for the good part.
The gold. That's good.
I like that one a lot.
And then I like this one, which is take note of what people do well. That's a big indicator for me as I'm looking at emerging leaders. I'm looking at leaders coming up. What is it that maybe differentiates them from others that they do really well? I think that's something to keep an eye out for. And then finally, do what you can to help them realize a better future. Mm-hmm. There is a belief deficit. We've talked a lot about this, where people, not only in leaders, but I would say even those that might be in your pipeline or those that aren't in your pipeline, have a belief deficit and can't even see the future. They can't even see their potential. I think a lot about, as we talk about our kids all the time, you're like, oh, I can see about 6 steps ahead of what their potential is. They can't see it right now. So how do you communicate that to them? How do you value them in a way to where you can see that and then communicate it so that they believe it?
Yeah, really. Well, I hear on coaching calls, well, how do I know who to develop? I got all these people, and I hear John in his teaching around finding your eagles. And who are the ones that can soar with you? And so he outlines, and I like this. I actually made it a little spreadsheet where I could be observant over the time of being in the office with people, being on customer calls with people, watching them do their jobs, watching them serve others in the department. And some of the top headings of these columns would be, if I might have Chris Goede there, I would say, now, is he makes things happen. I'm looking for people that make things happen around here. I want people who see and seize opportunity. They initiate. They don't just sit back. They see it, they go for it. And I'm looking for they take action. They influence the opinions and the actions of others. You actually notice, wow, other people on the team listen to this person.
They're starting to lead without even having a title or position.
People
right?
want to know what do you think? And they're always asking that. They add value to you. They add value to others. They're always looking for ways to lighten your load or lighten the load of others by bringing value to the table. They draw other winners toward them. They're attractive to the team. They say, hey, you should come work on this thing. They bring people. So you put some of these ideas together and you say, I'm observing on the team, what is it, the qualities of the leaders we want on this team? And do I see people taking initiative in their daily actions that I might come alongside them and say, I'd like to take you to the next level?
Yeah.
Hey, podcast listeners. Many of you listening right now would probably love the autonomy that comes with owning your own business or becoming a coach that helps other businesses succeed. Well, we have a phenomenal strategy where you are 100% in control of your own business, earning income on your own terms, and have access to the people, tools, and resources you need to build a thriving leadership development business. When you become a Maxwell Leadership Certified team member, you join a global community of entrepreneurs led by our expert team of mentors and faculty, including John C. Maxwell. You'll also get one of the top leadership certifications in the world next to your name, giving you the boost you need to get started. Visit us online at maxwellleadership.com/join the team to find out more.
I love your last one about drawing people towards them. You know, we talk about the fact that we attract who we are, not who we want. And so when you see people that are attracting winners, then oftentimes that's something that you would want in your pipeline. As we continue this list, they equip others just naturally. They're already beginning to equip others. They have the influence, as Perry mentioned, but now they're even just organically equipping them. They offer their ideas to help the organization. We call this discretionary thinking at times and effort, right? It's like, hey, Perry, you and Chris would do a great job at a podcast, but what if you did this or what if you did that? Just because they are thinking about the business for you. This is a great one. They just have uncommonly a great attitude. Mm-hmm. Like I want people with a great attitude on my team. I think also when you're going through this, that attitude, and one of the things you need to be watching for, whether it's in a spreadsheet, as Perry mentioned, or another place, is it allows you to really assess their EQ at an early age. Again, we know that there's potential there, but there's some foundation of, do they have self-awareness? Is there any empathy in there? What do you see that people are attracted to? Another one is, are they living up to their commitments and their responsibilities? Are they producing? You have to not only commit to stuff, but then you got to be responsible for what you committed to and produce. And then finally, they show fierce loyalty to the organization and the leader. For me, this last one right here that we just mentioned to you, this talks about we see great alignment with the core values of the organization. If they have that loyalty to the organization, then they are oftentimes aligned with the DNA of the organization and of the values. And I think that's super, super important. So, hey, I know you talk about this all the time, where leadership is caught, right? More than it is taught.
Yeah, caught, not taught.
People do what people see.
Right.
So how many of these characteristics right here do you personally exhibit? Now, I may not be putting Perry on the spot here. Yeah. Maybe I am. But those that are listening and taking this to their team,
great question.
I think this ought to be a self-reflection question. This ought to be maybe a team. I know there's a lot of you out there that are listening and watching that you tell Perry and I all the time, man, I have my team listen to this. I had a guy yesterday who's like, I don't like podcasts. But part of this prerequisite to this class, I had to listen to 5 podcasts with you and Perry. He said, you know what I love about it? Perry? I was like, no. Well, that was the second one. The second was Perry. Okay. The first one was, he goes, it's less than 20 minutes.
Yeah, yeah.
He goes, I love it. 18 to 20 minutes. He said, this is so me. He's like, I had to listen to all 5 before I came to this training. So last night I started on level 1 and I thought I'm going to be here for 5 hours getting ready because I waited too long. He said, I was done in an hour. Yeah. And I said, I'll tell you what, if you listen to it on 2x speed, like I do a lot, it's even faster. And so are you living this out? And have that conversation. We come back to, I was saying, listen to it with your team and self-reflect on that question. How many of these characteristics do you personally exhibit? And are you modeling? Because as Perry always says, it's caught more than you're taught.
I'm telling you, this it's a great question for all of us to ask, is that while I am the leader looking at my team to develop the next generation of leader, Am I also looking up to my boss? Is my
100%.
boss willing to develop me? And am I exhibiting am I making things happen? Am I seizing opportunities? Am I influencing opinions? Am I adding value? I mean, just go through the list and say, no, I don't seize opportunities. I'm just treading water here. Well, that's what everybody does. Can you take it to the next level to do that? Well, this all reminds me, and I think we can wrap up with this piece, but about the 3 essentials of leader development. The first one was around they're all 3 E's, environment. Are you producing an environment, promoting an environment for leadership development? In my mind, you can speak to this as well, but kind of what we do here is that we expect each other to be developing ourselves. We expect you to be doing some reading, some developing, some classes, some education, something to develop yourself, but we expect it. It's not, you don't come in here and just think, well, you can just get by. No, we're all trying to grow and get better. So the environment, it's a culture of continuous improvement.
I love that. It's a culture of it. That's key to it. Matter of fact, in our interview processes, oftentimes we'll throw a question out in the first interview. Hey, what are you reading? What are you learning? That tells you a lot. Now, it's because it's part of our culture and our environment. The second essential is equipping. Now, when we equip people, I know it's a commitment by your leader. It's going to take time. It's time sensitive. But man, I promise you this investment is worth the return. John wrote a book called The Leader's Greatest Return. Fantastic book. It's not about the financial return. It's about the return invested in people. Yeah, about developing people. And so we often hear too, people are like, I don't want to invest in and develop my people because then I'm going to lose them. And so sometimes we'll say, well, the alternative is a whole lot worse, which is you don't do anything, you don't develop them, and they stay on your team.
That's right.
And most people have heard that saying, you don't want them staying on your team. Right. But you need to invest in and train your people. And I promise you that is a big thing. I was talking to, again, a leader yesterday about the importance of the up and coming generations. So important for them to make a decision on their career placement of how are you going to develop me? What does that look like? And so if you're doing that real quick as in this equipping part, man, it's going to build not just a better individual which may be equipping, but it's going to build a stronger team. Like they're going to sense that, they're going to feel that, as you were talking about caught, versus taught. And not only that, but then as a leader, you're modeling for them what you expect them to be doing. And so you were talking just a minute ago about, am I living this out for my leader? Right. Well, where am I learning that from? Am I learning those characteristics and those traits from my leader? Or am I having to start that foundation myself? Don't allow your individuals to have to build that foundation. Allow them to see you model that and then encourage them to do the same thing.
That's part of that first E, environment.
No doubt. That's it.
And then the second E, equipping. The third E, and the final one is exposure, is that knowledge is good, experience is better. And the idea that should we be, exposing these growing leaders to opportunities in a variety of leadership, teaching and modeling and experiences they have. We did a podcast here once where we talked about, because everybody's telling me I don't have time for this. Stop trying to add leadership development to your already busy calendar. Add leadership development to what's already on your calendar. So if you're going to a meeting and it's okay to have somebody tag along, have one of your Eagles tag along and have them sit quietly and observe and then debrief with them. What did you hear? What did you see? This is how we do it at the next level. And begin to invite them into these experiences. And I'm going to tell you, in the digital age right now, there is no excuse. No excuse. You can't say, well, I don't have money, I don't have time. They're less than 20 minutes. They are a podcast. YouTube is completely free. I found more opportunities to learn on YouTube that I wish I'd have started earlier. All podcasts, I think, are mostly free. There's low cost on books. There's so much you can do, and you can do it all electronically and get people into that environment and that equipping and that exposure.
Well, as we wrap up, hopefully there's a couple of ideas that we talked about, kind of kicked around here, that just gravitated towards. I just want to ask you to pick one of them. And maybe that idea is that you create a spreadsheet with the list that we talked about, the 10 things, and put that across. But here's what I want to challenge you to do. Before you begin listing out your team and those that are potentially in your pipeline and checking those boxes, put your name up there first.
One of the rows has to be you.
Yeah, the very top one ought to be you. And maybe have somebody else fill it out on your behalf instead of yourself. But yeah, that is the application today. Go after that list of 10 and see where you match up, and then take that and start looking with a different lens. Like, it gives a different view of your people on your team.
Yep, and be intentional about
Be intentional about it. Yep.
Terrific, Chris. Thank you. And as always, glad you're here. If you want to learn more about our offerings, about our podcast family of offerings, if you want to leave us a comment or a question, as Chris said earlier, you can go to maxwellleadership.com/podcast. We always love hearing from you. We're very grateful you'd spend this time with us. That's all today from the Maxwell Leadership Executive Podcast.
Are you ready to elevate your leadership to new heights? Join the movement towards High Road Leadership with John C. Maxwell's latest book. In High Road Leadership, John explores the power of valuing all people, doing the right things for the right reasons, and placing others above personal agendas. Learn how to inspire positive change and bring people together in a world that divides. Order now and receive exclusive bonuses, including a keynote on High Road Leadership by John Maxwell himself and a sneak peek into 3 impactful chapters. Take the first step towards becoming a High Road leader. Visit highroadleadershipbook.com to order your copy today.